Welcome to Magic.ai, the operating system for hospitality. At Magic, we know an operating system is more than just software and systems. It's about people, because hospitality is nothing without them. So supporting the hospitality community is our number one goal.
I think there needs to be more of a support system. Like, you have to love this business and you have to love every aspect of it, including sharing tribal knowledge on what is successful and also tribal knowledge of what is a failure.
Founded by lifelong experts, we're building the place where everyone in hospitality, from seasoned pros to first-timers, can gather, share, and grow together. Plus, we're crafting scalable tools and AI-supported software to boost your business. Dive into our vibrant community platform packed with meaningful conversations and robust tools and templates designed just for you. Need more? Our custom software solutions have got you covered. From recruiting and staffing to digital playbooks and dashboards, we're working on building a unique hub of resources unlike any other. Magic is your single point of origin for important conversations, accessible tools, valuable insights, and more. Join us at magic.ai. The evolution of hospitality is here.
The restaurant has to have a feeling. It has to have a vibe. It has to have a overall sense of emotion when you walk in. I think that restaurant spaces are places that people come and celebrate life. The biggest challenge that we face operationally is the team member call-offs that happen on a regular basis. It's not that we don't want people to take off, because we absolutely do. And we offer PTO and UPTO for our team members.
Today we are speaking with Chef Sarah Grueneberg. After graduating from culinary school, she started her first job at the iconic Brennan's of Houston and was named the restaurant's youngest female sous chef. In 2005, Sarah joined the team at the award-winning Spiaggia under the leadership of Tony Mantuano. During her tenure as executive chef, Spiaggia was awarded 1 Michelin star for 3 consecutive years. In 2017, Grueneberg received a James Beard Foundation Award for Best Chef Great Lakes, and she was a competitor and finalist on Bravo's Top Chef Texas and Food Network's Iron Chef Gauntlet. Grueneberg is chef owner of Monteverde restaurant and Pastificio in Chicago, which she opened in November 2015 with business partner and longtime friend Meg Saz.
Being able to give your team answers when they're struggling is one of the greatest gifts that we can have, because we're people, right? If someone's having a hard time and you help them financially, you really have to do that for every staff member. And the consistency of those things. And so the reality is we want to be able to help our team and give them support that they need. And so our team has been able to use Southern Smoke for all types of reasons. Right now, I'm trying to run Monteverde and have it be profitable, which
Good.
is I think like the first part of opening and running a restaurant, like as a chef, I don't know about you, but I was like, it just has to be delicious and it has to be great. We'll figure out the finances later. And, I think Monteverde, we were very lucky. We're very busy. We're very lucky. We opened up a few more. We've opened lunch now. And so we're running a busy restaurant, and it helps, with a lot of things, but it's also, we want to create a good foundation for us to grow upon. So we're trying to put a lot of things in place that can help us grow our business and grow our team with, not necessarily more corporate structure, but almost in a way like the new independent restaurant structure, if you will. Tons of HR stuff, which is always on the list.
Yeah,
mentoring,
we live in that time.
mentoring and growing the team. And we are working on our second restaurant. So yeah, we're working on all of this kind of new, trying to build. And meanwhile, Monteverde turns 9 next month. And so that's like, what's crazy. I'm planning what we're going to do for 10, and then also opening a new restaurant.
Amazing.
Where's this new restaurant going to be? Chicago as well, I assume.
Yes. Yeah. We haven't announced anything, and the city is,
Okay.
People on the chatter, on the Facebook things have been like, oh, they're going here, but we're not talking about it yet.
You can neither confirm nor deny any rumors at this point.
Correct.
Okay.
But the biggest thing that's been helpful for us is we actually bought a building, and
wow,
so
good for
that
you.
is yes. So that is hopefully the the key here.
Can you tell us, I'd love to kind of pull on that thread. Can you tell us a little bit about why that's different for you than the existing situation with Monteverde, and why the real estate is important as a component of the deal structure?
Yes, because for so long, I mean, restaurants and operators have been, putting money into a space for years, and we put up so much to open. And there's certain things that if you were to flip the restaurant over, would stay in the restaurant. And depending on the rent deal you get, and depending on the landlord relationship, with TI, which is tenant improvement, and what kind of structure they'll put in, from an HVAC system to, will the plumbing actually handle the volume you're doing? Will the electric handle it? There's a lot of pieces to a puzzle that come about. And so the reality is when you're operating a restaurant, you just got to fix it. You can't wait for someone else to fix it. And so then you're going back and forth with your landlord. And so the reality is that it gives you more freedom to build it how you want. And the money that you would put into a space is your asset. And at the end of the day, when the restaurant does not, it's time to part ways, which I don't want to talk about yet, because I'm still not ready for that conversation. But I know there's some people that are selling their restaurants or closing and working on that next chapter of chefdom. Having the real estate piece is the retirement plan, is the ability to have more financial stability. And also, say if COVID were to happen, if you own the building, that's a piece that, if another pandemic were to happen, I think that having that stability of ownership might help thread that needle even easier.
Because then
the equity gives you a little bit more flexibility.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't have to be paying rent to someone while you were closed. If that were.
I mean, you still have to pay the mortgage, but
sure.
And then hopefully, if you can do it right, you can use what you would pay in rent to help pay down the mortgage. So it's really two birds, one stone.
Right. Would you ever think of, I'm not sure how big the building you're purchased or are purchasing is, but do you think of using the whole building? Or are you going to rent out other parts of the building to have another stream of revenue? Or will other parts of the building have to do with your business?
The whole building will be just of the restaurant space, but with private events. Not huge, but a flex space that we can hopefully have 30 to 40 people that want to have like a smaller, social event or business event dinner. And that's really, I think people are looking for that. They're not, looking for the, catering companies and hotels do the big spaces. But if Monteverde had a little dining room that could seat 40, that would be very good.
Yeah.
But we don't have that at the restaurant now. And so
30 to 40 is great. That's business dinners, that's companies renting out space too.
Yes.
That's engagement dinners or,
birthdays.
Birthdays, special birthdays.
It's like a big PDR.
Yeah,
okay.
So that's
cool.
That's the goal. But it's to be a flex space. I think that's what we try to build spaces now that don't feel like just you're up in the private dining. Because if you don't sell that room, it's got to feel great. It's got to feel like part of the restaurant, and it has to have something that draws you and wanting to sit into a different space than everyone else is. Dining in restaurants, people are very, they want to be seen. They want to be, it's still one of those things that I think people, when they go to a high-end restaurant or into a very sought after busy restaurant, they want to be in the main room, right?
Mm-hmm.
You made a reservation. I'm not going to the back room. I've waited for this reservation. I want to be in this room. And so, the beauty of it is that we want to make it feel like small individual spaces.
Yep. And that's also part of the kind of larger idea around diversification, right? Within a location, being able to kind of do a few different things. Like there's people who do kind of some retail and there's, different models, right? But allowing yourself some more flexibility so that you can bolt on some other services that draft off of the infrastructure that already exists within your establishment to create another revenue stream is kind of where restaurants have to go right now.
Yes. And we might do some retail. I mean, it's all, we're all trying to figure out how to broaden the brand and broaden
you have to give
the
away any
experience.
secrets you
Yeah.
don't want to give away.
No, it's okay.
I'm sure there's a demand for your pasta I'm sure you've thought about that before, but to retail.
Pasta's hard to make. Dry pasta, to dry the pasta properly, you need like a ton of different equipment. Like I feel like you need a special dryer, humidity controlled chambers to dry pasta. But fresh pasta there is, and dry pasta we could, but it would take a whole different scope. But the fresh pasta, it lasts about 2 to 3 weeks, but it does freeze well. So it's something we've talked about, but the reality is you need a whole separate space, and we don't have that right now at Monteverde. And it hasn't been something that I think we've thought. I don't know. I think we have to decide how much retail things like that are cost effective or bring sales.
Sure.
To get into a grocery store, you have to for us to try to get into a few markets, you'd have to distribute yourself and carry. And
it's a whole nother game.
It's a whole nother game. Like we were like, oh, super into this. And I was like, this is great. Let's do this. And then we were like, oh, wow. The profit margin of 1 pound of pasta is what? And then if they don't sell it, you lose that. And so it's a decision.
Well, it's also not what your wheelhouse is in a way, right? It's like packaged foods is a whole different industry in a way, and it's like you are in it to create hospitality experiences, right? It's a different beast.
It is, but my mentor Chris Shepard always tells me I need buckets. So he always says, you can't just have one restaurant bucket. So retail is a bucket. You got to have your buckets. So
yep.
How nice. We chatted with Chris last week. It was a lovely conversation. Good. Yeah.
He's amazing.
He is. Yeah. He's fantastic. So you said Monteverde was 9 years ago, and we know at this point that with a restaurant, it takes more than excellent food to be successful for 9 years. Maybe a year or two, you might be able to squeak by with excellent food. But I'd love to talk to you about what has contributed most to Monteverde's success, especially in a competitive market like Chicago.
Great question. I would say, first and foremost, to me, the restaurant has to have a feeling. It has to have a vibe. It has to have a overall sense of emotion when you walk in. I think that restaurant spaces are places that people come and celebrate life. And so in our modern day, there's not so many places like that anymore, and restaurants are that. And so, it depends on what you're celebrating or why you're there. It could be simple. It could be no celebration, but you're celebrating breaking bread, talking to people, not on your phone, not watching TV, eating, talking to people that you don't know. It's an experience. So I think that the real secret is the team inside the restaurant. And I think that that's what makes the feeling, is the staff. Because you can buy all of the fabulous chairs and tables and Bernardo plates and all of the fancy, or, not even fancy anymore, the very cool, different things to put in there. But if you don't have the feeling, then you don't have anything. So we spend a lot of time internally when I think maybe a lot of restaurateurs focus externally. And there's pluses and minuses to both.
So when you say spending time internally, do you mean on recruiting, training, hospitality, the experience your guests are having? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that and the team, and, trying to keep the team and learning what the team needs, staying active and current with the team, promoting people, mentoring them to bring up through the ranks, holding people accountable, holding, the standards up. Standards are really easy to slip. It's really easy for, one thing to go and then the next thing to go. And so you have to have this buy-in. And I'm not saying we have that, but it's our goal and it's what we're working on every day. And so I think our team does have a buy-in, but could it be better? Of course, right? But I feel like that is the key, especially when it's like cooking foods like what we're cooking at Monteverde, which is Italian food that's like not just traditional. There's layers to it, but it's all very comforting. And I want people to walk in and go, I had the worst day at work. My Uber was late, like stressed to get there, and walk in and be like, huh, and like decompress for 5 minutes. Like, and I tell every staff member that, like, that is the goal. They should walk into Monteverde and be like, I'm here. And then they're here for 2 hours, sometimes longer. We haven't figured out how to get them to get out a little earlier. But that's all part of that, right? So the hospitality piece. And then also, I think, mentoring the team. And so that's what I mean by internally. I feel like we're constantly trying to build and make us better, when I think that a lot of people that I look up to in the industry, restaurateurs, are growing their businesses at a much faster rate than we are and have.
You mentioned standards, and I'd love to dig into that, because I think it's something that's on the top of everybody's mind that we've interviewed, is that kind of sweet spot, if you will, that is the kind of ideal to try to achieve, which is when people kind of take onus and ownership over the process in your restaurant, but they're inspired by something else, right? Like maybe it's you, maybe it's your chef de cuisines, or your, whoever is kind of leading the team, right? To the point where, the standards are getting followed almost in a way that is just, it's just kind of like a symphony. It's just kind of playing itself. And that's like an ideal, I think. And it's a very kind of hard concept to grasp for, I think, owners and operators that are just getting started, in terms of having that line of sight to, how do I get to that place where, I can have a staff that's fully engaged and inspired and is kind of hitting it out of the park day by day. Are there kind of ways that you look at that process as an operator? Are systems a part of that? Is the organizational structure within your restaurant a part of that? Like, what are there attributable pieces of the business that you can look at and say, these things help provide a system for my people to be the best in the moment that they can be?
I think that the great restaurant companies that you look at, their training is probably the most important thing. And even restaurants like Let Us Entertain You, that I look up to, that's here in the city and all over the US now. But their training, you walk into Let Us Entertain You restaurant and you're greeted and consistently throughout these restaurants, and the hospitality is consistent. I always wonder, how do they do that with such big teams? And they have a partnership structure internally for their chefs and managers. So I think they have found a way to build a restaurant that's a big company, but treating each location where the managers and management team have autonomy of the decisions they want to make for their team and the restaurant. So I think that buy-in is really key. Again, we only have one restaurant right now, and Monteverde is my baby, of course, but I'm starting to not let it be my baby as much anymore, and trying to get, letting the team take over. So, at one point I was there, gosh, I would have to be there all the time, and expo and, all the things. And now the team is growing, and they're walking and they're running and they're putting specials on the menu and things like that. So it's really great. But the standard piece, I think, comes from training, because I find the biggest challenge is when we just think that we assume that people know what they don't know. And we assume that it's just like common knowledge, or it's, human nature, or, And so I think that a lot of times what I find is I'm like, well, why wasn't this person trained on this? Like, this is definitely something that we do. Like, why aren't we doing that? So the consistency of training, I think, is key to hold people accountable, to hold people so that they understand. I think team members, they want to feel confident in what they're doing at work. And if you don't train them to build that confidence, then that's the crutch of it, I think, is when people don't feel confident and they make mistakes. And then there's a vicious cycle there.
If it's okay with you, we'd love to dig into some of this, like just challenges that you've had, as a restaurateur. We all have them. And so no one is immune. But is there one big challenge that you can remember from the past few years, or something that created somewhat of a struggle for you as a leader or as a chef, and how did you adapt to overcome that?
I would say that what was a big struggle, and I'm sure a lot of people have talked about hiring is now changing. But there was a point post-COVID that we could not find a dishwasher. Like, literally, I brought people in for paid stages just so I could have a dishwasher in the position for that moment. And then I worked dish with them. And so we cooks also. So I think what happened then, as we got into this like rhythm of we're not gonna discipline anyone if they do anything wrong, because we feel so held hostage by not having enough people to run and operate just a regular day of service. So then it became this like Wild West. and it's really hard to turn that around. It's really hard to say, okay, well, we're going to start holding this accountable, and no, you can't do that. And this has then, we now are staffed, and that's great. But now, and I'm sure people talk about this, is call-offs. The biggest challenge that we face operationally is the team member call-offs that happen on a regular basis. And it's not that we don't want people to take off, because we absolutely do. And we offer PTO and UPTO for our team members. But it's how do you overschedule to cover the call off? Yeah. And then, we totally get things happen. But I'm just saying from my experience back in the day, and I'm sure you know this, there's no way everyone has family emergency the way that it's happening now. I mean, I think people, and I think our culture has started to prioritize, and I'm one of them, to prioritize life outside of work and wanting to do that. But I'd like us all to get to where we can do that. And it's not so much of I'm calling off just an hour before my shift. I'm planning that I want to take this time off, and I'm planning that I'm going to do this, and allowing that when there are those challenges that you can use the call off for that purpose. But then it's hard to schedule the 40 hour. Like there's negatives and pluses, because you have team members that don't call off and you have people that do call off. And so then you're dealing with some animosity sometimes with other team members. Well, I have to pull this weight. It's not fair. And, so we don't have the answer. I think what we did is we changed our PTO policy to have UPTO and PTO for our team. So that,
can you explain the differences for our listeners?
Sure. So UPTO is unpaid time off. So that's basically we also made the decision during COVID to close 2 days a week. So we're closed Sunday, Monday. And that was a big decision we made for our team. And so just like any job that's a Monday 9 to 5 or a Tuesday through Saturday, you have 2 days off already. So you can't just request or have off all this other time all the time, because we're trying to handle and we have the responsibility to, I find that we have the responsibility to make sure that our team that is working gets the hours they want and gets the schedule that they want and are able to do that. So, and then PTO, our team gets a good chunk of PTO. And so, it's basically that. Basically, the UPTO piece happened because we realized, looking at a yearly schedule, we had a few team members that were requesting off 30 days a year.
Wow.
Because if you have 2 days off, but you work, if you're, depending on what role you play, you don't necessarily have to work a full time. So we've done that to try to help create more even ability for people to take off, so that it's not just one person taking a ton of time off. Because unpaid was basically in the kitchen, you could request off, and if you didn't have PTO, you didn't get paid, but that was just kind of the thing that happened. So.
Is this some of the HR initiatives that you were talking about when we first started talking, or these some of the things you're trying to get sort of structured?
Yeah, we don't have the answers. And, of course, we are just going through with what we can. I believe that it's really important to be fair and across the board fair. And so you need to kind of have these standards, because if not, you realize there's team members that are taking more time and team members that aren't taking any time. And so then that's the challenge. So
it is.
But we do have a lot of these things that we're working through.
And fostering sort of a positive work environment, especially in a kitchen, is so important. It can feel just really viral, if someone is unhappy or resentful in a kitchen. It can get sort of contagious. How do you foster sort of positivity in the kitchen and between employees?
Well, we and it happens in the front of house too. It's not just always in the kitchen.
All staff, yeah.
It does. I think it actually happens a little more in the front of house. They're a little more competitive up there. But the back of house and the whole house team, I tell our management and our chefs to not let anything go to the next day. So if there's like a little something, if there's some weird, if you see something and you're like, this feels weird, or this interaction was not positive, or this wasn't or I heard this person make a under the cuff comment, you know what? We're going to talk to you about it. We're going to sit down and go, hey, what's going on? I heard this, or I oversaw this. That's really not how. And I try to tell our managers to, especially when you're a young manager, and you're if in the kitchen, we promote from within. So now you're managing someone that you cook next to use the restaurant as the third person. So, at Monteverde, we believe in this. At Monteverde, our standards are this, not like I need you to do this, because when you can remove the personal pronouns, it helps the message come across and people absorb it and listen in a way that it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm in trouble or I don't know. It's like re-jotting that. And so I think there's a little bit of that, and we just try to stay consistent and have it. And so that the check-ins, it's a lot of check-ins, but
yeah. Will Guidara talks about sort of something similar about standards in his book, Unreasonable Hospitality. And he says, when you start managing someone that you used to be sort of next to, I think this is, if I remember correctly, and you want them to like you, everyone wants to be liked. It's a natural human thing. And so if someone comes in with a wrinkled shirt, who's a waiter, going in front of house, and you let it go for one day because you think, I want them to like me, and how big of a deal is an iron shirt? And then they come in the next day and the shirt isn't ironed, and then you start to feel a little bit resentful. But now it's a little weird to say something because you didn't say something the day before. And then by day 5 of them having an unironed shirt, you're really pissed because you haven't said anything and the resentment has been building up, and you didn't just enforce the standard of the restaurant right when you saw the issue. And now it's much harder to bring it up if you've let it sort of go for a few days. And I thought that example really stuck with me after I read the book. I mean, I read it a few months ago, and I still think about sort of the setting a standard and then it's actually setting the standard is not the really challenging part necessarily. It's continuing to set the standard over and over again. And holding people accountable to that standard.
It's the buy-in of the team that it's okay to hold people accountable for the standards. That's the key. And so I think also post COVID and post the pandemic, we, going through that period where we didn't manage people how we do now and how we didn't do before. That does cause resentment. It does cause like, hey, I don't like this. And I found that just being honest, saying, hey, we've been through a lot, but look, this is really important to us now. We want to make a change in this policy or this standard. And I need your help to help make sure this happens on a daily basis. And,
and getting them to understand
getting
them to understand the long game with that too, that ultimately when they begin to create a culture themselves of holding one another accountable, it's in everybody's best interest, and that it's easier said than done, but it's definitely kind of, you will have those moments as an operator where you're standing around and you're watching it happen in real time, and you're watching your team, kind of work together and create a standard for each other. And you're like, wow, okay, that's powerful, and that's just a great moment. And it's a great moment for them to experience that and to realize kind of what they've achieved in that moment. And that's the ideal, right? But it's definitely easier said than done. You have, like I said at the top of our conversation, kind of achieved so much, and you've been somebody who's been out there, and whether it was Top Chef, and then it was, the cookbook, which just came out. I'd love to hear a little bit from you quickly about how you see your place in the industry as not just an operator, but also somebody who has eyes on you, right, as a celebrity chef, and how that kind of has dovetailed a little bit with what it is that you're trying to achieve at Monteverde and with this new concept and what you're doing next.
Yeah, I think that the decision to go, I think that a lot of us saw TV as a great way to build your presence, to build your confidence, to see if you had the chops. I went on the show because I loved the show. I loved Top Chef. I thought it was one of the most fantastic shows. And that was in 2011. So this was, it's a long time ago that we filmed.
Not that long
2010.
ago.
It was 15 years ago.
Yeah, it's coming up. We talked to your buddy Kenny Gilbert yesterday.
Oh, good. He was one that was, early on too, that we all looked up to. But I would say that at some point I have found that I've had to make a decision if I want to be a celebrity chef or if I want to be a restaurateur. And so my decision right now is more in the restaurateur land. And I want to be active with the community, and I would love to teach. I love to teach people how to cook. I love to talk about food. But I don't know how I could balance my life doing full TV. And, you really if you want to do that well, you really have to kind of move. And what I've seen, Steph Izard, who's an amazing friend and a fellow Chicagoan, she's now in LA and running 2 restaurants in LA and really rocking hard in her TV presence. It just, I think to do things well, you have to make that conscious decision, and you can do both for sure. But I just was not, I haven't been able to wrangle how I could do both personally.
And to do both as well as you want to do them, or that you would hope to do. I think
so. Yes. And the secret about me, and it's not really a secret, is I love to cook. I really love to cook, at home and at the restaurant. There's a lot of chefs I know that don't like to cook at home. And I'm like, what do you mean? How do you not like to cook at home? Yeah, you have to be almost obsessive about food. And I am. I'm obsessive about cooking and the culture and all of it. So I think that, I don't know if I answered your question, but I think that it's about figuring out how to balance that. But I think I'm always I could do more on social media. I could do more of this. I could do more of that. It's hard. How do you do it? How do you do it? I don't know.
How do you do it well? How do you do it all and do it well? Right.
Yeah.
One post takes, hours to make great. Or a reel.
It's true.
So you really need a team. I think you need to make a decision to do that. And right now, so, what's kind of crazy for me is, so I was in Houston. So Chris Shepard hired me out of culinary school. So he was my first mentor, and we worked at Brennan's together. And I moved to Chicago in 2005. And then I opened Monteverde in 2015. And now we're opening our second restaurant in 2025. And so I think for me, things just happen a little slower, and they just, they need to feel right. And that's okay. I would rather have one or two restaurants that have legs, that become places that people love to be at, that want to be at.
Is your new concept going to be Italian? Are you allowed
Yes.
to? Okay, great. Is it a different type of Italian?
I don't know. To be
I love
completely
that.
honest with you. Of course I want to say, yeah, it's going to be totally different. And then I'm like, wait, but it's still me. So then how is it totally different? But hopefully we're starting to look at bringing up a chef that will take over as a chef, and ultimately, next year, the new challenges for me will be hiring probably an executive chef of Monteverde and hiring an executive chef of this new restaurant, so that I can start to become
An owner operator.
Yeah.
That's wild. It's kind of exciting though.
It is. We have a few other fires in the irons in the fire. So you don't know what can happen, but we're really lucky. Bailey Sullivan is our chef de cuisine right now at Monteverde. She's been with us for 8 years. She's incredible. And she is so talented and a huge star. And so I want to help her get everywhere she wants to go. But I also know that eventually she's going to find her own way, and, she's going to go off on her own. So as much as I think that that's also a key for like the mentor-mentee relationship, is like, how much do you stay connected, and how much do you have this eventually, does someone have to make the step on their own? So it's there's a lot of new waters for me to traverse in this next coming year.
I think opening a new place, we've talked to some other owner operators who have said that sometimes it helps them maintain or retain staff, because they're able to promote and give people more responsibilities and new jobs and new things to do. And so sometimes it helps to expand, because it actually keeps their team longer if they can teach their team new things or new skills that they wouldn't have had maybe if Bailey, I think you said, if Bailey's been there for 8 years, so.
Yes. I mean, that's the thing that you say, well, I want to grow for our team, but then also there'll be restaurateurs that say, don't grow for that reason. Grow because you want to grow the business. It's a hard hat. It's two hats you got to put on.
Yep. One of the last things I wanted to talk with you about is your work with Southern Smoke.
Yes.
We just sat down with Chris just a couple days ago, it feels like, and he's one of my favorites, and I love him, and I love his energy and enthusiasm for the industry and, what he's doing. Can you tell us a little bit about how you kind of became involved with Southern Smoke and what that's like and where you see that going for yourself?
Yeah. Well, Chris is like my brother. So I'm his little sister. I've known him since 2001.
Wow.
And he actually had a ponytail that he used to put under his toque at Brennan's.
Okay, so that's new information.
Amazing.
Fantastic.
Yes, it was a full mullet. It was like a full ponytail.
Oh my God.
We got to get, I think Lindsay has.
I'm sure Lindsay has photos somewhere.
Yes, she does. They need to be all over the place. It's
amazing.
So good. But, growing up in the Gulf Coast, hurricanes were always something that were really big and part of our life. Antonio Gianola, who he had originally started Southern Smoke for, his sommelier that had MS. It started as this like small, get all the best pit masters in Texas together for a little throwdown. And it's grown into, we were just there last weekend, into an entire huge festival with, I think, like 60 chefs or something crazy. Like,
yeah, what was the check from last week? It was like $1.5 million.
Yeah, 1.5.
Incredible.
And they have incredible support and sponsors with Lexus and Yeti and, all of the things. And it's grown so much. We got into Southern Smoke just, I think, right when Harvey hit. That's when Chris started making it more about industry, or splitting it, saying, okay, this is going to go to MS and then this part's going to go to the industry. And so I went down to cook with them. But then Chris, Lindsay, Jamie, and I we've become really close. Like we're very, very good friends. And so I try to do as much as I can for Southern Smoke because I believe in it. And I believe in the people running the organization. There's so many different charity components and charity partners that people ask you, but you don't really know where and why and who. Like there's, and forever I just thought charity just means all the money's going to what they tell me it's going to, and it's actually maybe not. It's quite scary, there's certain things out there where you don't realize that, and as a restaurateur and as an operator, we've been able to utilize Southern Smoke for our team. And so when you're able to have this connection where something has worked for us as a team and for other restaurateurs, I'm just trying to spread the word and raise as much funds as possible, because the reality is being able to give your team answers when they're struggling is one of the greatest gifts that we can have, because we're people, right? As course you want to, the same time we talked about the wrinkled shirt, if someone's having a hard time and you help them financially, you really have to do that for every staff member. And, the consistency of those things. And so the reality is we want to be able to help our team and give them support that they need. And so we've been able to use Southern Smoke, or our team has been able to use Southern Smoke for all types of reasons. And the mental health care, the new initiative for mental health care is very inspiring and kind of a genius idea for them to partner with these universities to allow the time that the doctor therapy student needs to have that real life experience and logged hours with industry that can come. And I think it's people that are more like their age and understand what's going on. And it's not like you're the therapist your dad or your mom sent you to that doesn't get you, right? It's a win-win for me on multiple levels. We want to get it. And, the goal is to get it in all the states, but it's in 10 states right now. And I'm very lucky that it's in Illinois as one of our states. So
it's in Massachusetts too.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So awesome. I just think it's great and doing everything we can for Southern Smoke.
No, it's great. It's great. And you obviously are somebody who cares deeply about not just being an owner operator, but about the industry and about the people in the industry. And, Chris is obviously emulates that as well. So
he does.
It's important that we take care of our own, right?
Yes. Yes.
Who is the one person you hired that transformed your business?
I would say, gosh, there's so many of them. We have a lot of great people. Right now, currently, we have a HR consultant that we've hired that has been very helpful for us.
That's awesome.
That's huge. An external partner.
An external partner, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about reaching externally when resources can't be found internally, like marketing and HR, those two specifically, sort of knowing when to ask for help for your restaurant.
The next one's on marketing. What is the most successful marketing decision that you've made for your business?
I don't know. Good question. We don't do a ton of marketing. I always wonder, should we do more marketing? I would say that what we've started doing is, so when the cookbook came out and it's called Listen to Your Vegetables, we did a year of the vegetables. So every month we did a different vegetable and all of our specials were created by those vegetables. Cool. And that was really fun. And cool. Now for the 10-year anniversary, starting in January, we're going to bring back dishes from our 10 years. Yeah. Leading up to the birthday. So that's awesome. That's the marketing.
Like as old dishes as they weren't originally implemented? Or are you going to put a twist on them? Or
I don't know. I think we're going to do the original
yeah, that's cool.
that aren't on the menu anymore.
That's exciting.
So,
I'm sure people will be stoked.
yeah, and it's good for the team. I think the team will be excited too, to like rekindle dishes they loved, and or like for younger cooks to be like, oh, this is that dish, and learn how to make it and learn how to be a part of it.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Last question. What is one tool you use every day?
Well, my tea kettle is one, but that's not exciting.
That's
It's exciting for
I
Matt
don't
and
know.
I. We both like tea. So
Yeah. Tea
You
fan.
know what? I started reading, and so I have a Kindle now, and I really like my Kindle.
Oh, cool.
I love that. What kind of books do you like to read?
Oh man, you don't want to know. They're the fantasy type.
I really do.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Well, so a lot of us at the restaurant, we were reading like the fantasy, like ACOTAR, like the Court of Thorns and Roses books. Right now,
Okay.
I'm on the Crescent City series, but it's
Fantasy.
It's fantasy, and I didn't ever think I wanted to read
Escapism.
fantasy, and it helps me just totally not worry about anything. I just read these
Books are
fun
so great
stories.
for that. Yeah.
No
I didn't grow up
Monteverde.
reading. I
You
didn't
didn't
grow
grow
up
up reading?
reading. No. It's and it's quite relaxing to like.
Yeah.
See, my problem is I
Well,
always just fall asleep. Like I'll have a roster of books that I know I'll want to read, and I'll get into it, and then I'll get like 2 pages in, and I'm out. And I mean, maybe that's the point of it at the end of the day, but I want to actually.
It's relaxing you.
Yeah, it is. Oh no, it's doing its job, but I just wish I was better about, making progress.
So I had that problem, and I started doing Audible, where I would listen to the book and read along at the same time. And I've been able to stop that from happening. Because my problem was I would read, and then the next thing you know, I'm reading the words, but I'm thinking about 12,000 things. So the listening and the reading alongside has helped me now begin to lock into the stories.
Really be mindful.
Lock in. I love it.
Yeah.